The repercussions in response to Trump's assassination of Iran's top military commander have begun. Okay, so the Iraqi parliament has actually voted to oust thousands of US service members that are currently stationed in Iraq. Also, President Trump, as we reported earlier, had threatened to bomb or destroy some of the cultural sites in Iran. And he is threatening Baghdad, Iraq, with sanctions if they push US troops out of the country. Now, why would Iraq want to push US troops out of the country when Iraq invited the United States to come help them defeat ISIS? Well, a little fact that I think is super relevant to these discussions, doesn't get mentioned often. The Iranian military, right, under the direction of the man that was just assassinated by Donald Trump, also assisted in defeating ISIS in Iraq. So you have US forces, you have Iranian forces, and you have the Iraqi government working together in order to defeat ISIS in Iraq. And so Iraq actually has the Iraqi government, I should say, has a decent relationship with Iran because there are some common interests there. And Donald Trump and the US government decided to do this drone strike that effectively assassinated the top commander of the Iranian military. And they did it without, working with Iraq, notifying Iraq. They just did it unilaterally. So that is a problem, and that's the reason why Parliament wants to oust service members. Also, hundreds of thousands of mourners packed Iran's streets to pay respect to Soleimani. That was the top commander who was assassinated by Donald Trump. I have more details, but I wanted to open this.
Yeah, and I would also say, look, they certainly will have concerns about long-term stability if they allow the US to stay in the region. I mean, any confidence that they might have had in Donald Trump's ability to prosecute this conflict or any conflict in the region is probably gonna be pretty shaken by what they've experienced over the past week. But in the short term too, if they expect that Iran is going to attempt to strike back in some fashion, the closest, easiest way to do that would be against US service members in Iraq. And there's an incredible likelihood that if they were to do that, there's the possibility of collateral damage against Iraqis in the area. So just having those American soldiers there potentially endangers Iraqis as well.
Exactly, and I also want to note, in an effort to garner more support toward this aggressive, foreign policy against Iran, the government keeps telling the American people that the people of Iran are very happy with what happened to Soleimani. Don't believe that for a second, because in that B-roll video that we just showed you right now, that was the hundreds of thousands of people who took to the streets to mourn his death. No, I'm not saying that to make Soleimani out to be some great person, but it's clear that what Donald Trump did here actually is counterproductive to his stated goals, because prior to this assassination, there were mass protests in Iran, and that is exactly what the US government wanted. So the Trump administration implements these harsh sanctions that cripples the economy in Iran. And the people start protesting. Obviously, they're hungry, they're angry with how the government is handling things. And then once Trump did this assassination, the entire country is united now.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing how little strategy Donald Trump has, how little knowledge he has, how he has no intellectual curiosity about the matter.
It is so uniquely 100% counterproductive to all of his and his supporters' stated goals in the region, which should lead one to believe that he is either uniquely incompetent or is lying about what his actual goals are. And unifying them against the US, that's bad if you actually want some sort of renewed, more pro-American diplomatic overtures, if you want a better version of the Iran nuclear deal, which he's been sort of implying, like it was too easy on Iran. But if what you actually want is war with them, this is just about the best thing you possibly could have done.
That's exactly right, and Iran has announced that they will now work on their their nuclear capability. Why wouldn't they? I mean, Donald Trump is the one who decided to pull out of the nuclear deal and then implement these sanctions. So at this point, especially with the aggression toward Iran, the country really has no incentive to avoid building any type of nuclear weapons.
And one reason that they were willing to stop was to get out from under previous sanctions. Well, the sanctions are on, and they weren't going for the nuclear weapon. So why have the sanctions and no nukes? Why not at least go for the nukes? And if you're worried that Donald Trump or some other crazed Republican could actually attack and try to invade the country, the nukes are the best possible deterrent you could have.
So I want to give you some news from the Iraqi prime minister who tends to agree with parliament in wanting US troops out. The Iraqi prime minister told parliament that Iraq was grateful for the assistance the US had provided in fighting ISIS, but he's now recommending that the 5,200 US troops stationed there permanently leave the country. The Defense Department officials said that because of attacks on Iraqi and US bases over the last 2 months, the US would be suspending support for Iraq's anti-ISIS operations and training of Iraqi forces. So there's a little bit of inconsistent reporting when it comes to this part of the story. So the Pentagon had initially sent some notification to Iraq indicating that they'd be willing to pull US forces out. And then later there was a statement issued saying that no, this was a mistake. We're just going to move some of the troops around. We're gonna reposition them. So it's unclear what they're really gonna do. But one thing that is clear is that the Iraqis do not want US troops in their country, considering how things have gone down. And then I want to give you one final response from Donald Trump. This is what he told reporters aboard Air Force One. If they do ask us to leave, and he's talking about Iraqis here. If they do ask us to leave, if we don't do it in a very friendly basis, we will charge them sanctions like they've never seen before ever. It'll make Iranian sanctions look somewhat tame. If there's any hostility, that they do anything we think is inappropriate, we are going to put sanctions on Iraq, very big sanctions on Iraq. So.
We're living a nightmare, but I don't even know what to say at this point.
Yeah.
I'm shocked he didn't threaten to bomb them, honestly.
It's so frustrating. It's frustrating that I mean, the Bush administration was a nightmare, and this just continues to devolve. Like, I didn't think things could get as bad as the Bush administration.
Like we've been saying for years, he's a madman.
Yep.
He's an actual madman.
And
that we've given more power than any other human ever on earth.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.